And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another exciting off-season edition of the Assembly Call. I am your host, Jared Morris, and we have a full house tonight. First of all, the whole crew is here. We've got Andy Bottoms, Ryan Phillips, and Will DeWitt. And, one of the greatest players in Indiana history, one of the greatest players to ever wear the cream and crimson, is here with us as well. A.J. Guyton. Now, A.J. played at Indiana from 1997 to 2000. He was named first-team All-American and first-team All-Big Ten and Big Ten MVP as a senior. He is one of only two freshmen to amass 400 points, 100 assists, and 100 steals in his freshman season. Isiah Thomas was the other one. He's one of only three players to be named team MVP 4 times. Calbert, Cheaney, and Steve Alford are the others. And he's one of only 2 players to be in the top 10 in both career points and career assists. Damon Bailey is the other one. And last November, A.J. joined all of those guys and a few select others by being named to the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame. A.J., welcome to the Assembly Call.
Thank you for having me, and that was by far the best introduction I've ever had.
Well, you make it easy because as you just look at your career and your stats, so many accolades, such a great career that you had. And we want to dive into that because, you're one of the most beloved players in IU history, and I know everybody wants to hear stories about your career, stories about playing for Bob Knight, and we're going to get to those. Before we do, though, I actually want to talk a little bit about what you've been doing this summer because you've had a crazy summer. You've been working at a camp in Peoria with Sean Livingston, who just won an NBA title. You've been over in China coaching with the Bloomington Flex. Tell me about this summer and everything that you've had going on.
Yeah, this has been one of the more eventful summers for me. It's been real active. Started my own academy, actually, and, started working with young kids, trying to help improve their skill work. And, being real stern with the skill work and teaching the skill work as Coach Knight did for me. And also, I did a Pride of Peoria basketball camp and clinic with Sean Livingston, 2 Bradley graduates, Daniel Ruffin and Marcellus Somerville. All of us are Peoria natives and Peoria, Illinois natives, and all of us graduated from the same high school, ironically. So we do these to, give to the children. And we give back a free clinic, and then we have our paid camp coming up next week. Our paid camp is to take young kids through NBA level, college level workouts and let them see where they stand skill-wise and, what kind of chance they have to make it in college. And the summer just continues. I coached a team over in China to a 7-1 record, a bunch of guys I didn't really even know, but I was asked to do it on the fly. And, I decided to take on the challenge of coaching international basketball, which is very difficult to coach. And that's the reason why I wanted to do it. So I spent 3 weeks doing that as well. So the summer just keeps going on, man, and I like to stay busy in the world of basketball.
I didn't even know that you had the new camp coming up next week. How can people get information on that? Is there a URL?
You go to the Facebook page. It's actually on the Sean Livingston Foundation's page, and you can sign up for that. And, it's $150 per camper, but you get more than $150 in value as far as the gear you're going to get, the teaching you're going to get. You're going to get basically gifts, a gift basket, gift package from us. And, and then you're going to get teaching from the best players in Peoria area. So, and it's something that I'm trying to get those guys to bring to Indiana where I'm comfortable. And, hopefully next year we'll start traveling around the state of Indiana and bring some of that teaching to these people in Indiana. I don't know how they'll accept Sean being that he's a Golden State Warrior, but, we can work with that.
And I heard an interview with you that you did on one of the local news stations where you kind of talked about how you guys wanted to bring some of the old school back and kind of show these kids. What do you find that there's a bit of a generation gap kind of between what you guys expect and how you were maybe younger and growing up and how the younger generation is?
Absolutely, man. If you watch the game, and I know you guys are very educated about the history of Indiana basketball and basketball period, how much the game has changed, you know what I mean? And I know a lot of people attributed that to Coach Knight's style of play and what he built, but that's just the way the game is nowadays. Less passing, less movement, more standing, and more dribbling. And so what we want to do is you don't want to hold the new generation back, but you want them to be able to understand how to play all facets of the game. And that's what I prided myself on as a player, is being able to do everything. If there's a little guy on me, I couldn't blow by him. I use screens to get around him. If there's a big guy, I go around him. I use the dribble and the bounce to get to the basket, create for others, and just playing the game as a whole. And I think, with the influx of AAU basketball and the me first, mentality, and if you watch the NBA finals, a bunch of guys playing one-on-one basketball, you kind of lose the sight of what basketball used to be. So as a coach and as a teacher, you want to fuse both, to make a complete product. Are we there?
Yeah, we're here. Andy's going to ask you a question now about your career at IU.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's transition back to the IU days. I know you and I shared some stories before we got started of living in the summertime heat in Bloomington on the 9th floor of a dorm with no air conditioning. But we're not gonna focus in on that. Although that may have been a rude awakening for you, coming to IU. Maybe not what you thought college would be. But as you go back to the recruiting process, one of the things that stands out about you is that you weren't the 5-star recruit coming in. What do you feel like allowed you to outperform that recruiting ranking, and maybe specifically what IU coaches, when they came and saw you, what did they tell you that they saw that maybe other people didn't seem to see?
I just got to tell a group of kids that the one thing a coach and coaches can say about you that is irreplaceable is that you know how to play. And I think that's where I fit in with during that particular time with Indiana basketball. Coming to Indiana already, I was taught how to play the game by my high school coach, Chuck Bishop. And the competition in the Peoria area was at the level that when I came to IU, I already knew about competing. I already knew about competing for a position. I already knew about those things. So when I came in, my whole goal was to prove to everybody that Coach Knight and his staff didn't make a mistake. And, I was just one of those guys that knew how to work and how to play. And then, I used that to motivate myself to win a starting position at Indiana earlier than even I thought.
Yeah. So what, was IU a school that you were interested in, early on in the process? Was it a school that you followed? Were you more of an Illinois guy being from Peoria, or where did IU fit in the mix, early on in the recruiting process? And then, obviously we're all glad you ended up where you did, but what were your thoughts on the program heading into it?
I didn't know much about it because I grew up in Peoria, and all I kept hearing about was Bradley basketball and Illinois basketball. But as I got older, I start, I heard the same things that I hear from, I hate to say it, but more ignorant IU haters. When you play for the guy that just threw the chairs. Did he punch you? Did he kick you? You kind of, that's all you heard, coming up. And you're like, what are you talking about? But I quickly learned, because I come from a high school that had a tradition, and that's rare in high school sports, is that you have a high school that's really heavy on tradition. In Peoria High, I had Chris Reynolds, who was a starting guard for Indiana, and from 90 to 93, and knowing him and then having to be able to sit down and talk to him about playing for Coach Knight and playing at Indiana University, that was the kind of the thing that gave me an edge, because he taught me what to expect at Indiana. So I knew if I didn't play hard, and I didn't play with a lot of effort, and I didn't do exactly what Coach Knight told me to do, it was going to be tough for me. But I had that, and I was lucky to have that from Chris Reynolds.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember him being from Peoria, but didn't realize you guys went to the same high school. That's awesome.
Same coach and everything, yep.
Yeah, that's cool. So do you have any good recruiting stories with Coach Knight? I know Jared recently talked to Tom Coverdale for the Inside the Hall podcast and had a good recruiting anecdote about what Coach Knight said to him going through that process. Any good stories from your recruitment?
No, I was very lightly recruited, and Coach Knight never came to my house or anything like that. I didn't take it personal either, but he never came to my home or anything. All I remember is, I came to my last visit. I still had Michigan State to visit. I still had St. Louis to visit. I was going to visit Michigan State, Missouri, St. Louis, and Indiana, and Bradley. Those were the 5 schools. And Bradley was a hell no. And then I went to Missouri, and then what's his name? Norm Stewart told me he was going to redshirt me. And so I had Indiana, St. Louis, and Michigan State left. So I visited Indiana, And once I went to a Purdue game, and I don't even know if Indiana won or lost, but I remember just walking into Coach Knight had this little room in the locker room where he sat, and either he had a good time or he was chewing out the coaches for something. But I peeked my head in there, and I was like, "Hey, Coach Knight," and he said, "Hey, AJ, you coming to Indiana or not?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm coming." And that was it. And that was an Indiana Hoosier from that point forward. So, and that's really the story. And from that point on, we always had it was a respectable relationship, but it was weird because it wasn't like we was best friends, but it was like we always kind of understood each other from that point forward. So, I definitely made the right decision, but I should have demanded a little bit more fanfare, shouldn't I?
I don't know if you'd have gotten it from him though, but you could have asked. I'm not sure if that would have been a great move for you.
Yeah. But.
So let's talk a little bit about Coach Knight, because obviously you have been probably the most vocal former player, certainly lately, in support of Coach. At a time when, look, I grew up in Bloomington, and at that time Coach Knight was a deity, and in the time since, opinions have changed a little bit. He's still obviously very well respected for everything he brought to the program, and yet, some of his methods are maybe more called into question. It's not quite the same, but you have stayed so much in his corner and stayed so supportive of him, and I guess I'm curious why you felt the need to be so vocal about it. I've loved hearing it, but why have you felt the need to kind of step up and really be the guy in his corner, talking so openly about everything that he's meant to you?
Yeah, I really shouldn't be the only guy. There's many. I look at the track record when just living as a man now, and I'm older. So, you look at the effect that people have on other people, and that to me, that's respect. I don't know. I'm not into championships. I'm not into, just because you won a championship, you're a good person. That doesn't mean anything to me. What means something to me is what the type of men that Coach Knight has churned out during his tenure at Indiana, the type of professionals they are within their fields. Not a lot of them play professional basketball. They all, they all know the game inside and out. They all took what we learned in practice and what we learned about preparing for games. They all took that and they're successful in whatever they're doing. And to me, that's a successful basketball coach. And I don't want that to be forgotten. And I think, I made a comment in my open letter that they were moving away from that era, and it rings true. I want to give Coach Knight the flowers while he can still smell it. I don't want to wait till he passes away or goes away and then say, talk about how great he was for me, and he can't hear it. So, I just feel like I want more guys to be vocal about it. The more important guys, the Buckners, the Mays, and the Woodsons, and all those guys that, Coach Knight really meant a lot to them, and they really meant a lot to Coach. But, I just refuse to let it die down, the fact of what he meant to Indiana basketball, and just that dream of him walking on the floor again and making it all complete.
Yeah, well, and like I said, a lot of Indiana fans have loved hearing you say that. And you mentioned Buckner and Woodson and some of the older players. You played in an interesting time for Indiana, because you played with a lot of guys who were more highly recruited than you, and who, when it got to the end of their careers, people looked at them as maybe a disappointment. They didn't fulfill what people thought, or they transferred out. There was a lot of coming and going during your time. Do you think that kind of the transition kind of started then, where maybe guys were a little bit less receptive to Coach Knight's tactics or teaching styles? Do you think he was different during your time there than had been before? Do you get any sense of that just from talking to some of the older guys?
He definitely tried to adjust and be a little softer, and I think it didn't work out. You know what I mean? And I'm all for toughness on the basketball court. I'm all for making guys own up to their responsibilities on the court. I'm never gonna be a coach that has to kiss the players' behinds to motivate them. You know what I mean? And that's just his style. And the reason why it was less accepted, because we didn't win. He wasn't winning the Big Ten championships, and he wasn't, going to the Final Four, which were the expectations that he had built for the program. And what gets lost is the real reason that you attend college is to get an education and to have the collegiate experience, because of the expectations grew and they were bigger than what we could accomplish during my tenure at ICC. And I don't think there's one man more important than me because he was on a team that won a Big Ten ring, or he was on a team that won a national championship. I think I look at all Indiana basketball players, as equals, and that got lost during that time period. That Coach Knight wasn't going to the NCAA tournament wasn't good enough. Not finishing third in the Big Ten wasn't good enough, despite the fact that we had guys that couldn't take the heat, that transferred, that couldn't just take the Indiana way. So, I'm proud of those guys that stuck around, and we provided leadership for the Tom Coverdale. We provided leadership for the Jeff Newtons and the Cal Hornsbys and the Dane Fife. And I don't think people understand that in the program that's always ascending. There's leadership in place that the young guys have to follow. And we did that for that particular group, that 2001, 2002 group, that was able to go to the national championship game and achieve the type of success Indiana basketball deserves.
AJ, I know you came in, as you said, sort of as a lightly recruited freshman, but you wound up, earning a starting spot, during your first year and holding it for 4 years now. I mean, Coach Knight was notoriously tough on freshmen. It was an adjustment period, all that stuff. As a coach now, do you look back on that and say, wow, that was an enormous amount of trust he put in me, at 18, 19 to really step on the floor and make an impact at such a big program? I mean, do you look back on that sort of just, wow, that was an accomplishment in itself? I mean,
yeah. Really. I look back on it all the time, man. That's why I talk about Indiana basketball as much as I do, because I didn't even know at the time what I was doing. I was just playing basketball. I didn't even realize that, hey, no freshman plays 35 minutes per night or starts 27 out of 28 games. I was just trying to get that team, try to help that team, be that piece that team needed to get better. And we struggled a lot during my freshman year after a nice start, 14-1 start. We struggled for the rest of the season, but the one bright spot was our freshman at that time, and and we had some good moments. But it's really impressive when I look back, and I couldn't believe it. With the kind of pressure that Indiana basketball is. I'm just glad Twitter wasn't around. I'm glad Assembly Call wasn't around, so that you guys couldn't dog us out and talk about us like crazy. And
we're very supportive on the
on. Huh?
I said we're very supportive on the Assembly Call.
Yeah. Hey, it wouldn't be media without some good and some bad, but I'm just glad I ain't had to deal with that. But it was a pressure time because I got to see the inside Indiana basketball. But through it all, I just stayed faithful to the process of playing basketball and producing on the court. That was my main focus.
So as you look back, kind of coming in as a freshman and all the way to your senior year, what part of your game, or maybe even mental part or whatever you want to say, what do you think improved the most? Is there one thing that you look back on and say, this is where I really improved and allowed you to have the success you did over the time you were there?
What I'm proud of is that I got better as an individual player. I got better each year, but one thing that I'm disappointed about is that I didn't maintain the all-around game that I could have because of the transfers and because of the defections on the team. And I was forced to be in a role of more of a scorer, and I had to score 20 points, 18 points a night to be in the game. You know what I mean? So, but my game was like, as you mentioned earlier, as a freshman and sophomore, it was really all around. Where I was doing everything, but having to put that kind of time and work into scoring took me away from the all-around game that I could have been better at, and maybe would have helped me out a better NBA career if I was doing those things. But but overall, I think I got better. I had a little lull in my junior year where I didn't play well early, but I finished real strong. But overall, I think I got better each year and was able to, be more exciting and fun to watch.
Yeah, that's something that we were talking about before we started, the fact that you're, in the top 10 in assists all time, which I think a lot of people might not realize a lot of the assist numbers you put up your freshman year, but you also led the team and made field goals all 4 years. So I think that's something that people remember, the shooting and things like that. But I do think for probably as hard as you sound like you still are on yourself about it, you were a good distributor, and because you attracted so much attention,
Right.
on the other end, then certainly helped you open up other players. Did you have kind of a aha moment about IU basketball and IU fans at any point as you got started once you got on campus, or anything that sticks out where you're like, these people are crazy about basketball? I know you said there wasn't Twitter, so maybe it was delayed, but was there, at what point were you like, I'm really in for something crazy here?
I just remember my first day on campus. I was walking down to the student union, walking into the hotel, and I walked into the window. It was like I walked into the glass thinking the door was open. So you can imagine that, smashing against the glass. And, I looked around, nobody noticed. But then when the season started and we had our first scrimmage, the scrimmage that everybody got to come watch, then I went to class the next day, and then it was like I was a unicorn. You know what I mean? Like, everybody was just staring at me like, was that was you out there yesterday? That you out there yesterday? I was like, yeah, that was me. Like, they sat there for like 3 or 4 weeks in class with me, had no idea that I was on the basketball team. So from that moment on, it was just like, everybody, I walk in, from games, the classroom clapping, you know what I mean? Teacher clapping. And I'm like, just 2 weeks ago, I didn't have any idea who the hell I was. So, but from that moment on, it was just, and then I started having success on the court, and that made it just 10 times worse. So, not worse, but it was a good bad, you know what I mean, to be known on campus, to be big man on campus at 6 foot, that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's funny. I remember moving in and I was talking to other people on our floor. They're like, oh, there's a couple basketball players living on our floor. And I told Jared this after the show last time. I go, for however nerdy anybody thinks I am about IU basketball and doing stats and whatever now, it was probably times 100 then, and I couldn't have been more excited that IU basketball was. I don't think I even knew who it was at first. I was just like, this is unbelievable. I can't believe it. So that was I knew you were right away, but I think everybody was certainly surprised. And then I remember
walking
in, you're just like getting your hair cut on the floor, and I'm like, man, that guy just played great against Michigan 2 days ago. This is
right.
So just a couple like kind of quick hit things, I guess, about your career. So do you have a memory, a game, a shot, anything that really stands out to you? I have a few in my head, so I'm thinking I got it narrowed down to a few that you may pick from, but we'll see if I'm right or not.
Man, that's tough because the game at Michigan my freshman year was a phenomenal game. Was probably the best game I've been a part of. And we lost at home against Purdue my freshman year, which was a phenomenal game. I think Chad Austin hit an incredible fadeaway from about 17 to beat us.
Yeah, you can't say that. You can't say that name on here. There's too many bad memories associated with that guy. Yeah, we can't.
Facts are facts. But Coach Knight went in the locker room, got on us because we didn't push him right. We had pushed him right, he'd have missed the shot. That's what I remember now. And then, obviously the shot against Temple, then obviously the game senior year to beat #1 Michigan State at Assembly Hall. And, this is a lot of moments that were great moments, you know what I mean? So just that atmosphere, man. Every game felt like, a Michigan State game. We were playing Buffalo out there one day, and they were going crazy in the Hoosier Classic one year. And I'm like, man, why are you guys here? Like, you guys should be on vacation. Like, why are you not playing? We're playing Buffalo. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, but you never forget those moments in Assembly Hall. I remember I went back and I couldn't believe Assembly Hall, how it had changed. It's more just video graphics and video boards everywhere, like a concert now. And when I played, it's just one scoreboard in the middle of the court. That's all you had. They got the one swinging on the wall. So, but the atmosphere has not changed.
Yeah, okay. I think you hit on most of the ones that I thought of. The Temple game was one. I remember that because I had really good seats. The Michigan State game, I had floor seats. I was right under the basket where you made that great pass to Lynn Washington for the game-winning basket. That was unbelievable. That was definitely the game that I probably remember the most, where you really kind of took over, and it was just it was obvious no matter what happened, you were going to get the ball pretty much every time and make something happen. That was pretty great.
Excellent.
So, I guess that might be a segue into this next question. Maybe this person was involved in that game, but who is maybe the best player you ever played against? So either somebody that really gave you fits defensively, somebody that you had a hard time guarding, anybody that sticks out in your mind like that.
Man, a hard time defending. I don't think I really had a hard time defending anybody, but the best player I played against in college was probably Chauncey Billups when we got beat by Colorado in the first round my freshman year. You know, I had never seen anything like that. You know what I mean? That was something to work towards. The most difficult team is probably obviously Michigan State because, you know, how physical they were, you know, how they lined up at each position, man, and it's like playing against a bunch of linebackers. So, you know, just playing against Michigan State and probably the most difficult place to play. I don't think I've ever won in Minnesota at the barn. Like we've had like two or three overtime games up there, but that place was a difficult place to play. And so yeah, those, you know, the Michigan State was definitely well coached. I'm one of Tom Izzo's biggest fans. I'm born of Bo Ryan's biggest fans. Just the way that they coached the game. Those two coaches still had that Big Ten feel, you know, to their basketball teams and what Big Ten basketball used to be.
Yeah, I definitely agree on Michigan State. Being close to that game, that was like a street fight, as I'm sure you'd probably attest that all of those were. So another thing that I had kind of forgotten about, I was, you know, researching a couple things, you know, before doing the show, and was about your decision to return for your senior year. So there was some transfers. You had just come off you know, as you said, you know, finished your junior year really strong. You know, was that a hard decision for you, and what were the main factors in you coming back?
You know, I just, you know, I came back because I knew Coach Knight was in a difficult position, and you know, I just didn't want to walk away from a guy that gave me the opportunity to play the game at one of the top 3 universities in the country at that time. So, you know, I still felt like, you know, that was Coach Knight's greatest coaching job in my 4 years, to be able to get that team, you know, to finish third in the Big Ten and to have the record we had and to beat the teams we had, beat the teams we beat that year. I just felt like that was his number one coaching job. And my decision to come back was that I felt like I could be more of be remembered more at Indiana University, you know, as a basketball player than I would leaving early and going to the NBA and just being another guy playing in the NBA. You know, I saw that Yogi Ferrell returned for his senior year, and when I was thinking about it, that's exactly what I was thinking for him. I was like, you know, the decision to go chase money and chase the NBA, you know, or to be a legend in Indiana basketball history. You know, I chose to try to attempt to become a legend in Indiana basketball history. That was more important to me at that time.
Well, I can speak for all of us when I say we're glad you did. So one last question for me, and then I'll stop hogging the time here. But your comments about Yogi are a good segue to this, and kind of about the all-around game that you talked about. You know, I kind of saw as you were there, you know, your role changed a little bit from year to year. You know, freshman year, we're asked to be a little bit more of a distributor, and then, you know, gradually got to a point where you're averaging 20 points a game.
Right.
You know, Yogi, you've kind of seen some of those things as well, where his role, coming in his freshman year, was very much, you know, you've got the keys, but you know, you've got a team full of veterans and things like that. And then he was asked to score a lot more in his sophomore year, and then, you know, last year was trying to balance those things. You know, how did you approach that process and trying to balance the different roles that you had on the team and those transitions from year to year?
The motion lights went out. Let me get the motion lights back on real quick. Hold on. All right.
You're back.
Repeat the last part of that question.
Yeah, just basically how you approached, you know, your role changing and being asked to do different things over the course of time at IU. Just, you know, what your mindset was for that, and maybe how that might play into, you know, what he's gone through over the first few years of his career.
Yeah, I didn't think about it, but, you know, I would definitely give the advice of, you know, being more of an all-around player. I think when I watch him play, you know what I mean, I think he focuses a lot on scoring, and I don't really think he has to. And it's something that I would have changed if I could go do it all over again. And maybe I wouldn't have been player of the year, but, you know, I think he has the potential to be more of a, you know, 14-point, 5 or 6 assist type guy than an 18.4 assist guy, you know, and I think that'd be more conducive to the team. And I think I could have helped my team more back in the day if I was that more of a 17.5 assist guy instead of a 20.2 assist guy. You know what I mean? So just be more of an all-around player and focus on making the players around you better. You know what I mean? And instead of trying to do it by scoring, you know, try to get guys involved more and sacrifice the shot attempts. And I think the team will be a lot better and win a lot more games if he, as the leader, takes that approach.
Awesome. AJ, so as a student today, obviously when you were playing at Indiana, we were only like 3, 4, 5, you know, very, very small people.
Yeah, to bring that up.
I'm not trying to make you feel old. I do apologize. But
Yeah, right.
So for students like me, can you tell us a little bit about your game and what you brought onto the court that we might not know about?
I mean, when I played, I think people referred to me as kind of like, you know, smooth, you know, and making the game look easy. And, you know, it definitely was hard as hell to me. But I guess when people watched, you know, they made the moves that I made and the things that I did on the court look natural. And, you know, I think I brought, you know, some excitement to the game. And what you want to do as a player at Indiana is make the fans feel like every night they have a chance to win. And I think being on the court and being on those teams, I think every night, no matter who we played, you know, our fans always believed in A.J. Guyton that he was going to deliver that night. And I'm happy to say that most nights, you know, some nights that I love to take back, but, you know, 75% of the time, you know, I was able to deliver.
AJ, sort of moving ahead to today, you're a coach now. You watch basketball. You're an observer. For me, you know, when I was growing up, when you played basketball, you played with your high school team, and even in the offseason, you played with your high school team. Now it seems like kids are playing way more AAU ball than high school team. They're not really learning to run offense as much. It's more of a one-on-one game, as you mentioned earlier. Do you think that's changed college basketball? What do you think the impact has been, since now it seems guys come in and they might be individually better, but they don't really fit into the team construct as much and sort of have to relearn that?
Right. Have you guys noticed that the guys play more games in the summertime, but the game seems to get a little bit worse each year? That's kind of what I see. I see a lot of AAU games being played, but I don't see players getting better. And I think we have to get back to, you know, less focus on AAU basketball and more focus on training and skill work with your high school teams. Make high school basketball important again. And I don't think it's as important because all the kids are gearing up to play AAU basketball. That's what's important to them. So, but they're losing the training and the skill development that they need, that you can only get in the parks. You can get on playing a little bit of street ball, that you can get listening to your high school coach, working out in the summer times, and then you take what you learn and what you get during that time period, you put it into a weekend of AAU basketball. That's how we used to do it. But now it's the exact opposite. They don't listen to the coach in high school, and then they focus on playing 5-on-5. And when you play AAU basketball, you're playing with the 5 best players in the city normally, or 5 of the top 15, 20 players in your city. So you don't have to do as much. You kind of waiting on everybody else to do everything, and you don't concentrate and focus on your skill. You do it. Okay, you do it. And then on top of that, you lose the competitiveness in AAU because you play so many games, and you don't care about winning the game because you got a game 10 minutes later. So, you know, all of that stuff adds into a mindset, a kid's mindset that, hey, I got a game tomorrow. I have a game tomorrow. So they don't focus on the importance of one game. You know what I mean? So, you know, I'm not against AAU. I play AAU basketball, one of the better AAU teams in Illinois history, the Illinois Warriors out of Chicago. But I played on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. I didn't play Monday through Sunday. And I spent a lot of time doing skill work with my high school team, and that's what I took that work into AAU. So, you know, I'm definitely a proponent of wanting the game to continue to evolve and to be better, but I think AAU is the concentrated focus on AAU is destroying the skill work of our players, so we don't see as good skilled players as we used to.
Do you think that the showcase nature of AAU is hurting the game a little bit? I mean, because like you said, it sort of seems like 5 individuals just instead of a team type thing, it's trying to show off for coaches and things like that instead of letting it naturally come through, a high school game or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the me first, the showcase. I want people to see me. That destroys the game of basketball, man. And then I hate to say it, but the friendliness. They all best friends now, so it's hard to go out there and kick your best friend's ass. You know what I mean? It's difficult. You're my boy. I don't want to embarrass you. You don't want to embarrass me because it's going to be on assembly call. It's going to be on Twitter tomorrow. So let's just take it easy on each other. This stuff has a major effect on a kid, and you can tell those kids that are competitive that don't care who you are, as opposed to those kids that don't want to embarrass each other. So I know it's kind of teasing and funny, but it's the truth, and you hit it right on the head.
That's a great point. Is there anybody during your playing days that you had a kind of a special mano-a-mano rivalry with, maybe back from some of those Big Ten battles you played in? Was there a specific guy that you liked going up against but had that rivalry feel to it?
Man, Coach Knight taught us to want to kick everybody's ass, and that's what we wanted to do. I didn't like any of them, and I knew a lot of them just from the national team and trying out for the going to Colorado Springs for the USA trials, and I met all those guys, but we didn't smile and slap hands and give high fives. Or me and Mateen Cleaves didn't smile. We smiling now because we don't play against each other. But back then it was like I didn't call Mateen Cleaves or I didn't call Scooney Penn or any of those guys and hey, how you doing? We on this. No, it was like we gonna play this game. We're gonna go to war, and I'm gonna try to embarrass you on national TV, and then we could talk about it when we turn 38.
So maybe the advice that you just gave is some of the best advice that Coach Knight gave you. But we have actually a question in our chat from Brian Thompson, who's a fellow coach like you, and I think it's a great question. Mm-hmm. And he asked, what was the best on-court and off-court advice that you received from Coach Knight, and how do you pass that along now in your role as a coach?
Can I hold on a second? Because I think this thing's about to go dead, and I want to get a charger real quick.
Yeah, grab your charger.
Let me grab this charger because I don't want this to cut off.
Grab your charger. So we'll obviously keep talking here because this is a live show. So this has been great talking with AJ. Andy, you just tweeted out probably about the most fun that we've had on the assembly call. I would have to agree. Certainly the best player that we've had share the air with us here on the assembly call. And we do have a chat. So if you go to assemblycall.com/live and scroll down, I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the show, but there is a chat there, and you will start to have that now as a regular feature of the show, and you can go there and.
I don't want to go there. It's probably 2% right now. I don't want to go there.
Wait, Jared, did you just call AJ the best player to ever be on this show? Hello, I'm right here, dude.
Oh,
I knew you were going to say something like that.
Yeah, I just don't want this. This is going well. I don't want this thing to cut off.
No, that's good. We'd rather take a break right now.
Yeah, because they're using Hangouts and we live on the internet. So. Mm-hmm. So, of course, I know he probably knows where his charger is 100% of the time, but struggling today.
Hey, we've all faced this. I faced this exact same moment mid-show with my computer not plugged in, just like hoping that it doesn't die before the show runs out.
Yeah, we good. All right, what's that question again?
Okay, so this is from Brian Thompson. He's a fellow coach like you, and it was, what's the best on-court and off-court advice that you received from Coach Knight? And then how do you try and then pass that on to the players that you're coaching now?
The best on-court advice is to learn how to be a step ahead of your opponent, defensively and offensively, and that comes with preparation. And we all know that's huge. That's what Coach Knight was huge on. Just we prepare more than we practice, and I don't think people understand that. We sit in film rooms and we did walkthroughs. As the season goes along, we practice less and we prepare more, and we work more on the skills part and sharpening our skills as shooting and rebounding and defense and all that. But when it came, we needed to be a step ahead of the opponent on the court, and off the court. And that's the big thing about Coach Knight that people don't understand the value of having a coach like him is that he always talked about life, you know what I mean? He always talked about life. 50-50, life and basketball, even in practices, doing in the locker room was all about, preparing yourself for life after basketball. And that's why, I speak about Coach Knight the way I do, and I have a conversation with Twitter world. I don't care who wants to listen. I'll talk about him because, now I'm living that. I started to live that when I retired at age 32 from basketball. Now I understand exactly what he meant when he said college basketball will be the last team you ever played on. And that rang true because, when you get to the pros, it's all about you and you developing yourself so you can make more money, and it's less about team. And like you guys doing, that atmosphere is like a family, and you don't experience that at the pro level often. I think certain teams, the San Antonio Spurs has that family atmosphere. It looks like the Golden State Warriors atmosphere, but that's 2 teams out of 30, and you miss that coming out of college. So those are the 2 things that I remember most about Coach Knight harping on.
And you speak very highly of Coach Knight, obviously, but even the players who love Coach Knight the most, there are still hard times for them, and most probably had moments where, it got hard and maybe even questioned leaving. Like, was there a really hard moment for you? Maybe it happened early, maybe it happened late, where you're like, man, this is even harder than Chris Reynolds told me, than I could have imagined. And if there was, what helped you fight through it?
Well, there wasn't really any difficult times for me. It was the fact that I understood what the things that Coach Knight was asking, but it was difficult for some of my teammates to take the coaching. They call it criticism. So, to watch that and say we could be really good if we could all just get the concept, we can all just do what he's asking us to do. And we couldn't do it consistent enough, and that was frustrating to watch, But there was never a time where I contemplated transferring. Even there were times where I got kicked out of practice where, everything was my fault, and Coach Knight tell me I was on my period that day. And, that's just how he talked. And I took it, and I was some days I was on my period. As a basketball, do you guys? I don't know, you guys might, but you guys feel like, you're getting on the radio or getting on Twitter every single day, and there's a time where you kind of have to motivate yourself to do it, but and you have to expect that as a player. You can't expect, and then that coach gets on you that day, and then it makes it worse. So just being able to watch that and not understand that Coach Knight's teaching us the right way, but we just weren't quite getting that was a frustrating period.
So let's talk a little bit. We've talked a lot about your career. Let's talk a little bit about your time after Indiana. Obviously, you got a chance to play for the Bulls, played a few years in the NBA. What was your pro career like, your time after you left Bloomington?
It was up and down, but, like I was telling my campers, my academy campers today, my goal wasn't to make it. I think people are surprised when I said I didn't dream of playing in the NBA. I just love to play basketball, you know what I mean? And so when I had an opportunity to play in the NBA, I relished all years that I played, you know what I mean? I relished it because it wasn't nobody in the city of Peoria and nobody at the beginning of my career in Indiana would have told you that I was going to graduate and get drafted. You know what I mean? Nobody, not even me, told you that. So I know nobody else was thinking it. So to be able to play those 2 years and 2.5 years in the NBA, and then to be able to travel the world playing basketball, I started in Italy. I spent 3 years in Italy, 3 in Bologna, and 1 in Reggio Calabria, and then I spent a year in Croatia. I spent a year in Greece. I spent a year in Sweden, and then I finished career in Qatar. And I've been cut before. I've been cut from the NBA. I've been cut from European teams, just not playing well. But I've always been a guy that it's a privilege to play. It's not something that's given to you. So I just go to the next team and play as hard as I can. But I had some great moments overseas. Played in a lot of championship games. Played in a EuroLeague Final Four before. And got blasted by Maccabi Tel Aviv in the EuroLeague Finals. Anthony Parker, Sarunas Jasikevic, those guys. But the experience is what I take back from Indiana basketball and my pro career. So, a lot of people, make it. You failed because you didn't have a long career. I never thought about that. I was just grateful for the opportunity to play. So, not many people can say they've done what I've done and had the career that I've had. I'm in
Right. So growing up in like Peoria, I'm assuming it's safe to say that you were a fan of the Chicago Bulls growing up, especially during that dynasty throughout the 90s.
Absolutely. Hmm.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So how
Yeah.
did it feel being drafted by the Bulls then?
Oh, it was crazy. I was just playing the draft night, obviously. And that contrasts what I said about not expecting to be in the NBA, but I was because I felt like I was one of the top 5 players in the country. I was a consensus first team All American, and to get drafted 32nd in your own draft in your own country was disappointing. The Bulls picked me. That made everybody happy because now I was 2 hours away and everybody could come watch me play. So it always ends up working out in the end. But I had a lot of ups and downs on my draft, man, because I just felt like a lot of those guys that got picked before me at that time period, I pretty much destroyed. But then I learned about the politics of basketball.
Well, AJ, this has been wonderful. We've got a few minutes left here before we have to wrap up, and I know, whenever we have people on and we ask for questions from folks, everybody always wants to know what the former players think of the current team. And I know, I see you tweeting during games, and I know you get a chance to watch these guys, and obviously this year's team has a lot of hype and a lot of expectations. What are your thoughts on this year's team, and specifically as it relates to defense? If you were coaching this squad, are there one or two things that you can pinpoint that would help this team play the defense they're going to need to play this year to get better?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's all about position, defensively. Especially when you're not as talented defensively. Yeah, the 2000, I believe, 11 or 12 team was with Zeller and Victor Oladipo and those guys. I mean, that's just a talented basketball team. But what happens to you when that talent leaves? You have to be, like we talked about earlier, be more focused on details and preparation when you don't have the talent. And I think that team, with the senior leadership that it has, they should be a lot better at that, especially being in the right position, staying in basketball. It was difficult last year because they were extremely small. Yeah, it was fun to watch them run up and down the court, shoot threes at times, but even me as a three-point shooter, I know that you're not going to win that way. So, guys inside that are going to be able to get putbacks and rebounds. You're going to be able to compete against some of the better, bigger teams in the Big Ten. And I think we leaned on that heavily last year. Now, and that became the identity of basketball. So when you focus on offense, you lose focus on defense. So now we're talking about outscoring people, and we're not talking about stopping people and getting stops at key moments. So, with the influx of the big guys and talent, be able to protect the basket a lot better with the work that they're doing this summer and this spring. They should be able to stay in front of the basketball and not get those bigger guys in foul trouble. So, now it's all about just technical points of deep. Hopefully Tom Crean's able to teach them that.
So my last question for you, all of us who went to Indiana, I think whenever we go back, Assembly Hall is obviously the place that we love going back to the most. I have to assume that's the same for you. But we all have other places that we like to go to. What's your second stop when you go back to Bloomington? What's your favorite kind of non-basketball stop when you go back there that you love going back to and reminiscing it?
I stop at try to eat at I forgot the name of the place. It's a wing place. It's right there on Kirkwood, and I'm just drawing a blank right now. But Kilroy's, I have to go to Kilroy's. Kilroy's on Kirkwood. Is that still there?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I stopped by there, and then there's a wing spot that I stopped by up there, right on the. I don't remember the name of it right now, but just drawing a blank. But, yeah, Buffalo Louie's. I have to stop by Buffalo Louie's every single time when I go back there. So I was just drawing a blank because here is Buffalo Wild Wings. So I get confused all the time. And I just make my rounds. I hit that up, and then I always got to walk through the student union every time, just to reminisce about going there, back through the cafeteria, and just, smiling at all the young ladies as they walk by and wishing I was back in college. But other than that, it's all basketball and reestablishing those relationships when I come back.
And when's your book with all the Coach Knight stories coming out?
Man, yeah, I gotta. I'm starting to get all the details. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times for me, it takes somebody bringing up a story for me to remember it. Like, cause I was just kind of like focused on basketball. So some of those stories kind of just escape me. But when I get together with the guys, I get together with Luke Jimenez, and still in touch with Charlie Miller. I'm still in touch with him, and we start talking. And then those stories come up, and now I have to write them down because I don't want to miss out, and I don't want people to miss out on this book that's coming here in the next 2 years.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll be looking out for that because that'll be a good one.
Hey, look out for that. That's gonna be big.
That'll be a good one. So folks can follow AJ obviously on Twitter at AJ Guyton. And where's the spot if people want more information on the basketball camp again?
If you want more information on the basketball camp, just go to Facebook, type in the Sean Livingston Foundation, and the information about the camp will come up. So, we're looking forward to expanding to Indiana, and if anybody wants to be a part of that, feel free to hit me up on Twitter.
Perfect. And we'll put that link in the show notes. AJ Guyton, this was wonderful. As I said at the start, for three guys who grew up watching Indiana play, and obviously for Will now, who's at IU and who's heard a lot about you, this was a real thrill for us. So, and I know for all the members watching the audience. So thank you very much for taking the time tonight. We really appreciate it and had a lot of fun.
Thank you guys for considering me. I appreciate it, and I look forward to give me some calls during the basketball season so we can talk some hoops.
All right. Hey, if you ever want to come on a post-game show, you've got an open invite.
Great.
All right, everybody. Well, to everybody who's watching live, thank you very much. To everybody who is listening on the podcast, thank you as well. We very much appreciate it. If you're not on the email list yet, go to assemblycall.com/subscribe, get on the email list, and we will be back in 2 Mondays with another live episode of the Assembly Call. Have a great night, everybody.
Appreciate it.